safe space. We ain't never give a reason you should hide. Compile all your questions, we're taking the quest. Join Tarsha on this journey to discover the rest. Go.
Welcome to the Adoption Journey podcast. I am your host, Tarsha Smith, and thank you for joining us on yet another journey. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody, please go check out the Patreon page. You will get all of me there. And what I mean by that, the podcast, plant-based recipes, extreme hip hop classes, like everything is there. So y'all go check out the new Patreon page. Without further ado, I'm always excited to have these guests. Today I have a fellow adoptee. Her name, and I'm going to say her whole first and middle because I love it, Ajane Nicole.
Hi.
She sounds like a neo soul artist. Hey, girl.
Something like hi.
So I'm going to dive right in.
Okay.
And my favorite first question is, how old were you? No, let me back up. Are you a transracial adoptee or same race adoptee?
I am a same race adoptee.
Okay, so how old were you when you found out that you were adopted?
I was 7 years old when I found out that I was adopted, actually.
Okay, that's young. Tell me how that happened.
Pretty young. So interesting enough, I was born in 1991, and around that time I was there was a lot of
I was in high school. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. I'm staying focused. Go ahead.
There was a lot of children that needed homes, foster children, a lot of children that were needing to be placed up for adoption in that time. And I was adopted through the Children's Home Society. Ironically, the Children's Home Society, at the time that I was 7, had a lot of commercials on TV, like Adopt a Child commercial. And the first time I asked, it was just out of curiosity. I'm not even going to lie. I don't know if I actually felt like I was adopted or if that was just God speaking through me to get an answer out of my parents. But I asked one time before after seeing a commercial, and they were like, no, you're not adopted.
Oh, they didn't tell the truth.
They did not tell the truth at first. And then I saw another commercial again, and I asked again, and I remember specifically my mom saying, okay, all right, we got to have a talk. We got to sit down, and I got to tell you something, and I don't want you to be upset. And then we had the whole spiel. I was 7 years old when I found out that I had older siblings and I had another mother.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to stop you.
Yeah.
Was your adoption open or closed?
It actually was closed. However, my birth mother kept in contact with the agency, and the agency kept in contact with my adopted mother. So my adopted mother was able to send letters and pictures up until I was about 5 or 6 years old. They lost contact because my biological mother had a house fire, and she lost contact with the agency somehow, some way, and the communication stopped then.
Okay, I'm intrigued because usually, to my understanding, a closed adoption is just that you have some non-identifying information. At least that was my experience. And that's it. And nobody has contact with anybody. So that's interesting. Were you here in the United States or are you outside of the United States? Really? That's interesting. And it's something else that you and I have in common. I also, around that same age, just asked the question out of the blue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Never met anybody else that had done that till today.
Yeah.
And not that I felt any kind of way.
I didn't.
Or I knew that I didn't look like anybody. That I mean, I'm same race adoptee, but I didn't look like anybody.
Right.
I just asked. So, yeah.
And I know they were so taken back by it. I was just like, for me, looking back in retrospect, it wasn't because I didn't feel like I didn't belong at that time. It was just, I asked a lot of questions. I was a very
me too
intrigued child.
I still asked a lot of questions.
That's just what I just asked to ask, and then I found out, and I thought it was pretty cool.
Me too.
I thought it was pretty cool. I know that my adopted mom thought that there was going to be some resentment which is why she probably didn't want to tell me initially when I
Mm-hmm.
asked. But I honestly, and I do have some resentment, but not because I'm
Not because,
adopted.
okay, we'll get there.
Um,
We'll get
yeah,
there.
not because I'm adopted. I thought it was cool that I had older siblings. All of my, I grew up with a brother and a younger sister. I'm the oldest of three in the
Okay.
household that I was raised in.
Were they
My
adopted
father,
too?
all of us were adopted.
Okay.
However, my brother and sister come from the same mother.
Okay. So,
So they were blood related, and then there was me,
right.
kind
Okay.
of like by myself.
Okay. Okay. And you're the oldest.
Hmm.
But it sounds like for the most part you had a good childhood. And okay, I'm gonna back up. Let me
No.
back up. Let me pull myself back. All right. Here we go. Go ahead and turn the corner.
So, I had a very interesting childhood. Like I
Okay.
said, I was the oldest of the three, so I was also the parent child and the guinea pig child. So I was
Explain that.
responsible as the second parent or second mother, being the oldest, having to take care of my
Okay.
siblings,
Okay.
and also the guinea pig because prior to me, my parents didn't have any children together.
Oh,
So being
okay.
the oldest and just having them experiment with me is
First
pretty
child
much
syndrome.
what
Yep.
it was. My mom had a daycare. She had a daycare in home, a very large in home childhood daycare. And I was pretty much a child worker. So not only did I take care of my siblings, but I helped her run this daycare in the house. So I had a
Okay.
lot of responsibility and very limited amount of child time.
Mm.
So I grew up pretty quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and had a
And
lot
now,
of responsibility.
what about your siblings? Are they having the same experience or
No, no, you would
first
think
child?
that we all were raised in different households. Like our
Okay.
upbringings are very different from each other's.
Okay.
Like our perspective on the household and growing up.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of responsibility. And are you beginning to get resentful? Not because of
I
adoption, but because I cannot just be a kid.
most
Yeah.
definitely. There were, I want to say between the ages of 10 and 14 were pretty bad years for me. My mom is from Omaha, Nebraska, and my father is Nigerian. So they're really very strict.
Talk
And
about
the
a mix.
culture, yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
So from the African culture, it's more of do what your parents ask. You don't ask any
Absolutely.
questions, and that's
Right.
just what it is. And then my mom
Right.
being from the Midwest, and in her age bracket, they're older
Okay.
parents. That generation is you do
Yep.
what I
Do what I
say,
say. Don't ask
not
any
what I
questions.
do, don't ask questions.
That's right.
And being the one that had to be responsible for a lot of the areas where my mother needed help,
Mm-hmm.
if things weren't done right, I was chastised or punished for things not being done correctly, even if it wasn't necessarily my fault. I'm not going to say that I didn't have a hand in making mistakes, but I had a lot of responsibility that I don't think was appropriate at that age. I did have a lot of resentment because my peers were doing things that children were doing. I also grew
Mm-hmm.
up in a very extreme Christian household, and I was in church Sunday through Sunday. If I wasn't in church, I was helping my mom with daycare kids. I was not outside. I didn't do parties. I didn't do things that normal
Ah,
kids my
a
age
pew baby.
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the family
So
that doesn't know what a pew baby is, it's a baby, a person that is just raised in church, and
in the
that's
church.
all they did. Every time the doors open, that's where they were.
Yeah, she was actually, not only was she a daycare director, but she was the Sunday school teacher,
Oh,
and
girl,
my
he's there
father
all the
was the
time.
deacon. So we were
He's there
there
all the
before
time.
everyone got
Mm-hmm.
there, and we were there when everyone left,
Mm-hmm.
and this was all
All
week
the
long.
time. How many years
Yeah.
between you and your siblings?
So my brother and I are a good 3, 4 years
Okay, so not
apart,
that much.
and then my baby
Mm,
sister is 7 years younger than I am.
okay.
So
So,
my brother, the middle one, he
Mhm.
could probably relate to my story a little
Okay.
more than she can.
Oh, she's the
Um,
baby. She doesn't relate
yeah,
to any of this, I
she's
bet
the
you.
baby. She
She
didn't have
she
to.
had a whole different
Yeah,
experience.
yeah,
I'm
yep.
sure. Okay, so now between ages of 10 to 14, are you saying that you had a rough time just because you were not allowed to be a kid?
I
Or
had
is
a
there
rough
something else there? Because
time.
I'm digging. Is there something else there?
Yeah, so it was a combination of feeling behind my peers. So,
Mm.
when I would step out of my house, my peers weren't watching Barney. They weren't watching Nick Jr. They weren't like I was a teenager, preteen. So they weren't
Okay.
doing these things. I had no idea what kids my age were doing, and whatever they were doing, I just wanted to do
You
that, but I
wasn't.
wasn't allowed to. And then I was kind of awkward too, like growing up. Like people think that I'm like this popular
Y-
person now,
Yeah,
and I just was never
that's what
that.
you look like to
Um,
me too. I told you you're
I
a neo
was
soul artist
very
in my mind.
awkward. Yeah, well, I actually am, and we'll get into that.
See, I
Yeah,
didn't
I
even know
actually
that.
am.
Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Like I said, I used to get in trouble a lot. So, like, I dealt with a lot of verbal abuse, a lot of physical abuse.
Mm,
I mean,
that old school
get
mentality.
your switch,
Yep.
extension
Go
cords,
get the shoe,
hangers,
all that.
anything that she could grab. I would get in trouble very bad for little small things. And there was a point in time where I just resented her for not allowing me to be a kid, not allowing me to make the same mistakes that my brother and sister would make, and
Mm.
her not showing me the same grace that she would show the other two.
Now, let me ask you a
Um,
question because now resentment is getting ready to build in.
mhm.
And it's kind of normal when we start hitting those preteen ages. And
Yeah,
because, at that point, as the teenager, we know everything and our
yeah,
parents know nothing, right? So,
right.
but was it coupled between I'm resentful because you're making me do all this, and does the adoption start seeping into your mind, or is that nowhere?
Actually, so what was my saving grace? There was a period of time throughout my childhood up until my young adult years where I was very angry with God
Mm,
because of the treatment that I received. I resented my mom because I helped her the most.
okay.
I feel, in my personal opinion, although my dad handled the financial things, when it came to things around the house,
That
her
was mama.
business, her children, I was the second parent, and I got no credit for it. I like ever, never.
Hmm.
And I felt like out of all of the children, if anybody should be praised or, like you should be
Yeah,
nice to, you should be nice to me because I'm helping you for
helping you.
free, like, and although it was just like, well, you do what I say and that's what it is, but she never made the other two do the things that I had to do. Like
Oh,
my life was like Matilda, Norbit, and Precious put together. Like like if
not
I could describe
precious.
it in movie theory, like I had a mean mom, like the mom from Matilda, Monique, how she played in Precious. My mom was morbidly obese, so I actually had to physically take care of her
Oh,
because there were things
girl,
she was not capable of doing herself, and I had the energy and the stamina to chase after
precious.
kids, and yeah, it was a
Precious
lot.
is quite the analogy because that movie
Hmm.
was rough.
Yeah.
Like I
I
can't even watch
honestly, I
that movie
can't
a
watch
second time.
it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
I
one
can't
and
even watch
done.
it.
I can't even watch it
Mm-mm.
again. I attempted to read the book. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah, it
I can't do it.
definitely get triggers me, that movie, and I like those movies I just kind of stay away from
Oh,
because
that is
they were
such an
meant to be
analogy.
good movies, but they're not funny to me
They're
because it just
not.
reminds me so much
I
of my
don't think
life.
Precious was meant to be
Oh,
funny.
well, that one wasn't a funny movie. Norbit was, but
Yes,
yeah.
Norbert was. Norbert's hilarious. But
Yeah.
okay, so you know what? The fact that she's obese, that brings in a whole nother realm
Hmm.
because you're like, really? Is she at the point where, um, like almost bedridden
So she
obesity,
actually was
or
like she was never bedridden,
okay,
but if I could give you like a visual,
yeah.
she had a gastric bypass later on in life, but prior to the gastric bypass surgery, she was pushing like, the my 500 pound
Ooh,
wife kind of lifetime
yeah. And how
ish
tall
kind
is
of.
she?
I'm 5'4". She's probably like 5'2". So she was
I'm
not
five
tall.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
she
know
was
how
not
tall
tall.
she
She
is.
was
That's how tall I
pretty
am.
pretty big. And she just didn't have the energy or the stamina to do a lot of things.
Right,
And I had to fill in. Like even when
right.
it came to disciplining my siblings, she couldn't
Oh, well, how
like
did that go over from you to your brother? Because it's not that much of an age difference. You wouldn't have
so
been disciplining me. We'd have been fighting.
I didn't do the disciplining, but when it came to him being disciplined by my mother, he would run. I would not run. I was just like, it was embedded in me to kind of take your punishment.
Yeah.
So I never ran. My brother was a runner. So she could never
He
catch
knew
him.
mama was not going to catch him.
Yeah, she couldn't catch him, so my job was to grab him and hold him down while he got a beating. And if
Oh,
I didn't catch him, then
then
I
you're
would
in
get a
trouble.
beating. Then I would get in trouble. So
Girl.
like, and him and I, we did have like a thing because he resented me and I resented him, and there was that
Sure.
little thing going on between him and I for a very long time. I would take out my anger on him um, because it was passed down to me from her. I didn't learn that until later on in life, but like we
Yeah.
definitely had issues there. So she
Oh
wasn't
my
very
gosh.
nice. She's actually not very nice today either.
Mm,
But
mm. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get
yeah,
there.
my
So
father,
thank,
he's
I was going
actually,
there. I want to
I'm
know because
sorry.
you're around there chasing people, holding people down.
So he
Where's
worked a
dad in
lot.
all this?
When a
Okay.
lot of these things happened, my dad was at work faithfully. When he came home, he
Taking
had
care of the house.
a routine. He comes home, he eats dinner, he watches the news, gets into his Bible, and then he goes to bed and he does it again the next day. He doesn't really interact very much with the kids and my mom's daycare and stuff like that. So
Okay.
he didn't really have a say. Um, and when he did have a say, because he is African, it is in his culture, you just have to listen to your mother. I don't know. I don't know. Just listen to her. I don't want to hear it. I don't want any problems. Like that's just how he was.
I
So,
love that you just went into that accent. Thank you for doing that.
oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I tried my best. But he was very just like, you listen to your parents. If you listen, then there won't be any problems.
Yeah.
I very rarely got any advice when I would give him my grievances about her,
Yeah.
because in his culture, you have to be on a united front. My dad was always in a united front with his
Hmm.
wife. It didn't matter if she was right or wrong. I thought it
Hmm.
was pretty toxic, but I don't know what kind of conversations were had behind closed doors.
Right.
So I don't know if anything was ever said contrary to what I saw them being united about. So I don't know.
Okay. So I'm gonna turn the corner. I want to know: did you ever meet your birth mother? Like, do they
So
come into the
I'm
picture?
so glad you asked. Actually, um, hmm, May 5th, 2015,
Okay.
I made a Facebook post looking for my biological family, and it went viral. I
Hmm.
mean, very viral. Like, I cannot make this up. I just put it out. God
Yeah.
carried it, and it went from here to Australia and all other kinds of places where people were just reaching out. They thought I was related. It was a lot. I was very overwhelmed. Long
Yeah.
story short, they found me that same night, actually, around 10:30, 11 o'clock later on that night. I found my real mom
You can't ever tell
by,
me that God doesn't show out, because
okay,
when when he puts his
okay.
hands on something,
He said, "Oh, you want to know?
You want to
All
know?
right,
All
I
right, here
got
we
you."
go.
Yeah. So, and it was so
Wow.
interesting because that was free. It was a free find because I
Yeah.
actually was going to spend money to hire a private investigator and all this other stuff. And when they told me the process of things, I was like, "Oh, I can't afford mom right now. Mom's going to have to wait."
Mom's gonna
Mom's
have
going to
to
have to
wait
wait. And then
because you knew
something
her
was,
name from.
well, I didn't know her
You
name.
didn't know her
So,
name.
no.
Do
So the
tell.
only thing that I knew, the only thing that I had to go off on was that she, whoever my real mom was,
Mm-hmm.
she would have a memory of the photos that were sent to her
Okay.
before this house fire that happened around 1996 or 1997-ish time because I was about 5 when it supposedly happened. So the only thing I knew was that I was born in Trenton, New Jersey. I knew that I had 3 older sisters at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that she had a house fire and I knew that she had pictures of me. So those were the only things that I had to go off of. And when I was screening people, it was, did you get any pictures? Did your house burn down? If they don't remember the pictures or they didn't have a house fire, then I automatically knew that I wasn't talking to the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that reached out to me to tell me that they have located my mother, her name was Shaka Khan on Facebook. And I was like, God, this is a joke. I don't have time for this because why is Shaka Khan messaging me about my mom? Like, I can't even trust you. Your name's not Shaka Khan, you know? So
Actually, I
I
know
was in
someone with that name.
I was in denial about everything. And she said, "Hi, I'm so glad you called me. My name is Sylvia. Your mom's one of my best friends. I have her on the line. She's crying. Hold on." And I'm like, "Wait, hold on. She's crying already. I didn't even ask her the questions. Now I got to tell another lady that she's not my mom." And I hate to be the one to break it to her. Like, I was in denial. But
Yeah.
when I went through this series of questions of asking her, the only thing that made me believe
Mm-hmm.
that she was my mother was that she said, she described 2 pictures that she remembers. So I'm like,
Mm.
she went on my Facebook. She went on my Facebook and she saw a Throwback Thursday picture that I post. There's no way she has that picture. So she says, "Oh, I also remember a picture of you wearing a Pocahontas leotard on a balance beam because you used to do gymnastics." Now,
Oh,
mind you, I only did gymnastics one summer and it was for maybe like a month or so. And I only remember that vaguely. But when she said it, I dropped my phone. I couldn't believe it because that picture doesn't even exist. That memory barely existed because
yeah.
gymnastics was not something that I carried into my life. It
Mm-hmm.
literally was a seasonal thing that I did when I was a young kid, and
Yeah.
you had to be there to know that. And you had to be the one. So when she said that, I was like, "Oh my God, like she found me." Like
So how do
she
you
found me.
feel in this moment after you pick up your phone from dropping your phone?
Um, in disbelief, in shock. I was
Yeah.
in shock. I couldn't, I lived in an apartment complex. I was running up and down the hallways, knocking on my neighbors' doors, like, because everybody knew I worked as a CNA at the time.
Okay.
And all the people at my job, they shared it. So everyone that I knew was very supportive of
Can
me
you
finding
tell me, and I'm asking because there's people out here that are afraid to look, and I'm a big advocate for
it.
looking, but the way you did it was so unconventional, but it
hmm
worked.
hmm
Tell me what you, if you remember, what did you say in that post?
So I introduced myself. I said, I was born in this year, and I gave the just a little information about what I was looking for. And I didn't want to say too much because
Right.
I wanted to make sure that my real mom knew all of the real details.
Mm-hmm.
And I just told them that I was looking for my family. I know that I'm from Trenton, New Jersey. I know that I have older siblings. And I've been looking for years. And if you see this post, please reach out to me. And she did.
I'm
And it was
dumbfounded right
crazy.
now
Yeah.
because you had a closed adoption. but still had some contact, which
Hmm.
later on would help you.
Helped out. It helped out. So, and you know what's interesting? They were actually looking for me as well.
See, okay, so I'm gonna stop you right
Yeah.
there because I say that all the time. As adoptees, we get so into that monster of I'm going to be rejected, but I need people to think about it both ways. There might
Hmm.
be open arms looking for you. They might be looking for you.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm so glad you
Just
said that because
never
that's
know.
just confirmation for what I say. When you go look, you gotta be ready because you don't know what you're gonna find. But it's not
Exactly.
always this big bad monster of
Right.
rejection waiting for you on the other side.
Right.
I'm so glad you said that.
And you know what's so funny? Like so me knowing that I was adopted at 7 actually played a big role in my coping mechanism. When
How so?
I when I would get in trouble or felt abandoned or neglected or however I was feeling from
Hmm.
my adopted mother, I would always go in my head, but you have your own mom out there somewhere, and she
Oh,
probably loves you really much.
oh,
And I had this idea in my head
yeah.
that whoever this woman was at 7 years old, and I carried this throughout life until later on in life when I found out what was really going on. But I carried this idea in my head that maybe she didn't have a lot of money. Maybe she couldn't afford me, but maybe she really loved me anyway. And the treatment that I got from my adopted mom, I would always imagine in my head that I had a mom out there somewhere who did love me, that, you know, did cherish me, did find value in me as a daughter and would want me.
Oh,
Um, so whenever I would get in trouble, I would soothe
you would go
myself with
there.
that thought.
That's
You
interesting.
got a mom. You have a mom out there somewhere. There's hope somewhere that one day you're going to find your mom and she's going to love you and you're going to
Okay,
be fine.
so what was the story behind her giving you up?
So the story that actually my adopted mom didn't have a story to give me. So the story that I got from my biological mother was that she was going through a hard time.
Hmm.
She had my three older sisters, and my aunt was living with her. She was working like two, three different jobs, and she was taking care of my cousins also. So, from what I was told, was that she just had a lot on her plate, and she really couldn't afford another child. Um,
Okay.
a lot of other people would say, "Well, what's one more? You already had a team, you know." But I wasn't there.
Right,
I don't know
right.
how hard that must have been for
Hmm.
her,
Hmm.
especially in the environment that she was living in. So I always gave her grace about that.
Mm.
I always gave her grace about that. A lot of people look at me and they want to know how I like was so open with her and not bitter and not angry with her for making the decision that she
I
made.
I understand why you're not bitter because it's not your burden to carry. It didn't have
Right,
nothing to do with you. You're a
right,
product of it, but that didn't have nothing to do with you.
right.
So why are you mad? I,
Yeah, I honestly wasn't. I always had in my head that,
I wasn't either.
maybe she just didn't have resources, but maybe she loved me. And for me, I grew up in the suburbs. So
Me too.
me growing up in the suburbs and having it all, there were things I did not have. And I would have rather lived somewhere that wasn't in the suburbs if I had that. I would have
Mm.
traded it all for the love.
For the
I
wow.
would have. And I did actually. In 2015, I moved in with my biological family.
Girl, stop. Not
Yeah,
move in. She didn't
I
visit.
did. I
She
moved
went and
in.
moved in.
I
Girl,
sure did.
how do we how,
So
how
I'll
do we
try to
get
tell you, it's a
there?
long
How
story.
we get well, I got time. How we get there?
So when I was 19 years old, I was kicked out of my house on my 19th birthday. And I have not been allowed to my childhood home since that day.
Oh,
I am not welcome there. My mother won't welcome me there. My dad's okay with it, but my adopted mom and I, we just
why?
don't get along.
Oh,
And
just from things building up over the years?
you know what? Honestly, it's more so because I have a very smart mouth. I'm a very call it like I see it person. And I ask a lot of questions, and if it doesn't make sense, I'm gonna say it doesn't make sense. And she is very much stuck in her ways.
Old
She's
school.
also textbook narcissist, but that's neither here nor there.
That's another podcast.
That's another podcast. And you know, when you're calling a narcissist out on their nonsense, they rather just exile you from the whole thing.
Yes,
So
for
that is who
sure.
I am. I am the scapegoat. I am the black sheep, and I in my 30s now, just now learning to be comfortable in the role that I play. But when I found my biological family, I was still kind of like in between houses.
Hold on, I gotta
Like,
ask you this too.
mhm.
Was she also upset that you found your birth mom?
Yes,
I knew it.
yes, she was.
Okay.
Um, I when I found them, I was in the process of losing a house, and I didn't have any options on where to go. Like I didn't have any family, obviously. Her family was in Nebraska, and I wasn't welcome there. So my biological mom said, "Girl, you could come here. You could come here." Like,
Hold on. Back up. What do you
hmm
mean that the family was in Nebraska and you were welcome there either?
So my adopted mom's side of the family, they're all from Omaha, Nebraska,
Okay.
and they are very much like her. Like they just their way of thinking is very similar,
So if mama is not
and
gonna fool with you, I'm not gonna fool with you either.
period.
Okay.
And that's just your mom said it must be true. What you calling your mom a liar? Like that's just
Oh,
how it
okay.
was. So
So your birth mom said,
she said, "Come,"
and you were
because
comfortable?
it was a dream come true for both of us. Honestly, I have done a lot of things in my life, and me moving in with my
Was
family
like at the
was
bottom of the
at the
list.
bottom of the list. So, when she invited me to come stay, for me it was a dream come true because that's all I ever wanted. All I ever wanted was to be welcomed, and it was
Yeah,
my family. Like it was like, oh my God, I used to think about this day. I used to daydream about this day
that's
forever. So
wild.
when she said it, it was like all my friends are like, "You gonna move the train? Why would you move the train?" And I'm like, "It's better than nothing. I've slept in a car. I've slept in the park. I've slept
Do
in
you
the
see my
parking lot.
mouth? And for
Yeah."
those that are just listening to the audio right now, my mouth is open because let me tell you why. Because something, my experience when I met my birth mom, real different. How you said that
Yeah.
you had imagined and envisioned, and it was a,
hmm
yeah, I had to, I had done the same thing as well. And then when I met her, yeah, totally underwhelming. Anything that I had
Yeah.
imagined, none of that.
That's so sad.
And if she said, "Girl, you can come move here," let me tell you where I'm not going.
Right.
There.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
am. You are at this point in the game. You're first.
Yeah.
How long
I took it.
from the time from the Facebook post till you moved in? What's this? What's the time span?
Maybe like a month later, like a month or two later. Like it was literally like a month or two later when I left. Maybe 2 months after I
But
had met them.
what's crazy is because I can tell just by talking to you when you did the post, your intent was not let me find these people so I can figure out if I can have some
No,
place to go. It just
no,
happened like that.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you get to your birth mom's house and
And
what
it was lit.
happens?
It was lit. It was lit. It was
Found
so
your
lit.
people.
I was
You
so
found your
excited.
people. Oh my
Um,
God. I was like, oh no, what's happening? Okay, you're good.
yeah, sorry. So she
No,
was
it's all
so
right.
welcoming. I realized that I came from a very big family. Now I was not raised in a big family. It was just me, my
Mm,
siblings, and mom and dad. Like that's all it was. So I had like a plethora of cousins and all of these uncles and aunties, and I had a
wow.
grandma that liked me, and like it was, and sisters, and I was the baby instead of being the
Oh, you're the,
oldest. Like it was
oh, talk
crazy.
about a flip.
Yeah, it was so crazy, and
And do you
it
look
was
like
really
these
nice.
people as well?
So my sister Aisha and I actually look the most alike because we
Hmm.
have the same dad. So she has locks like me. They're red. We have the same skin complexion, same shaped head, forehead, everything. We look like we could be twins.
Now, I assume they knew about you? Like
Yeah.
you weren't a family secret.
No, I was not a
Okay.
secret.
Okay.
So
Now, what
when I
about?
got
Oh, I'm
there,
sorry. Go
there
ahead.
was they threw me a welcome back party. So you know, like the Antoine Fisher, like it was like Antoine Fisher, but like
Yeah.
times 10, because my family is so big on like both sides. So like it was so overwhelming. Like they had a cake for me. Like this was like the first time in eons I had been celebrated like for anything.
Oh,
So it just felt so good. Like I'm not gonna lie, like when I first got there, everything was great. It was like my wildest dreams come true.
and did you meet your birth father then
I
as
did.
well?
I
Now,
did.
were they together, or your birth mom and birth?
So at the time that I was conceived, no, they were not together.
Okay,
So I think that that also played a part in the adoption too, because she had some other things going
got you.
on her end. But he didn't know. From what he tells me, my biological father, he did not know that I was like his child.
Ah,
He had no idea. So, you know, he also had his grievances with her as well, you know, him feeling like
I
he missed
wonder why
out.
she didn't. Yeah, because maybe he could have taken
Well,
you.
he would have because he actually had custody of my sister.
Oh,
Hmm.
that's interesting. Why she made the we'll never know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she had some things
yeah.
going on back at that time. So I was just like, all right, well, we'll just let bygones be. And
Right. We're
I
here
came
now.
with a clean slate. I didn't make her feel like she was obligated to do anything for me. I didn't come with a chip on my shoulder just because my childhood was shitty. I didn't make her feel like it was her fault. I pride myself in that,
Mm-hmm.
because there's not too many adoptees that would have that have gone through things similar to me that don't feel bitterness and don't
Mm-hmm.
feel resentment. But in the beginning, I did not feel those things. I was very transparent with her about my childhood. We bonded on a lot of things. I found out that I belonged to like one of the second largest families in Trenton. Like it's like
That's
documented.
wild.
Like it's and I actually went to school with some of my cousins.
Huh.
Yeah, like I had classes with them and everything. Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So this was in 2015.
Uh-huh.
So move me through the years. Do things stay good or okay?
No.
All righty.
No, they don't.
Turn the corner.
So we're turning again. Um, I left Trenton, I want to say like middle or yeah, about the middle summertime-ish of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And I left because my family, it's very hard to put up a front and keep the front up when it's not genuine. It's very hard to keep that up. And I
Right.
think we both, my mother and I, both put up this facade in a way. My facade that I put up
Mm-hmm.
was that I was just light and easy and nice and you know, like just not easily bothered by things. That was the facade that I put up.
Okay.
And the facade that she put up was that she was, that she had the capacity to have empathy. She also didn't have the capacity to help me or mentor me with certain things that I was going through. as far as like mental health was concerned, or just general life things. Like we grew up in two different places, so I expected
Right.
her to be able to like help me with life, like moms do. But the life that she lived was is not similar to my life. So there's a lot of things that I know that she does not know. So that
Mm,
was pretty
I could
disappointing.
see that.
It was also more of the my sisters and I had a falling out, simple and plain. And it was because, looking back in retrospect, my mother was putting on a very good front from their perspective about her mothering. So what
I was going to ask you that.
it looked like she was like this perfect mom,
And
and
they were like, girl.
who is this woman? They were very upset about that. And
Yeah,
I
I
was
could
just
see.
basking in this lady. I didn't care that she was fronting or not because I felt like I deserved it. I just got here. Y'all don't know what I've been through. Like, let the lady be nice to me. Like,
And they're like, well, you don't know what we've been through, and we don't know who this
exactly.
chick is.
And
Yeah.
at that time, I empathize with them so much more now, looking back in retrospect after I've done my healing. But at the time, I thought it was very selfish. And I wasn't empathetic towards their
Mm,
feelings because I felt like I got the shitty end of the stick on things, you know. They had gone through a lot of things that I was not there to witness, but I felt
right.
like you guys were together. I've only gone through everything in life by myself, you know, and you guys had her. I didn't get to experience her at all.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think, because I hear some people, because you a few minutes ago even alluded to this, being there versus the experience, does just having that person or having that family, does that trump everything?
Um, as far as like the love, like
Hmm.
having, um, if it was genuine, it
Okay.
would have.
Okay.
If it was not a facade, if it was
Gotcha.
the real deal, I just can't afford it, but I got you. I love you. I'm loyal, you know, like
Okay.
I am, that's way more important to me than anything that you could possibly do for me. And I
Okay.
still stand on, if things were the way that they appeared to be in the beginning, I would have stayed a lot longer. I probably would still be there. Like it wouldn't, I go
So
where
how
the
long
love
did you
is.
end up staying?
I wasn't even there a whole, maybe a little over a year. A
That's a
little
lot.
over a year. What happened was my siblings and I got into a very big altercation, and my mother played the back seat of it. I felt like her being the matriarch, she should have like orchestrated a meeting or something for us to sit down and talk about things because I'm a talker. I like to talk things out.
Hmm.
And she didn't do that. Instead, she resorted to other avenues of coping. And I'm not that kind of person. And that's where the resentment kicked in with her. I realized that in the face of adversity, in the face of things that are too difficult to handle, I run into them face first. She
Okay.
runs away from them. And these were things that my siblings were trying to tell me, but I was too wrapped up in the new situation
Right.
to believe what they were saying. So when she showed me who they were trying to tell me that she was, that's when all hell broke loose, and we had a problem. That's when we had a problem.
Oh my gosh. So are you total? Okay, I'm just going down the list. No contact with your adoptive mom,
Hmm.
and no contact with your adoptive father, just because you're not allowed back in the house. Or
I
do you still
talk to
speak to them?
him periodically. Like my
Okay.
relationship with him is a little estranged, but not really because I'm the one who calls him mostly. Like he
Okay.
doesn't call me really, but like I'll call him and he picks up
He'll
for me every
answer.
time. Yeah,
So, and
he
your
answers.
adoptive siblings, do we talk to them?
So I actually have no relationship with my brother, like whatsoever. Like we don't talk. I don't know if it's just us going our separate ways, or if he's waiting for me to reach out to him. But him and my adopted mother are like really too close for my comfort, so I don't really get in the mix
Okay.
like that. But my baby
Okay.
sister, we're pretty estranged also, but I do communicate with her on like social media. I do
Okay.
wish things were better, but I do feel like um, with life just being busy and she has her own things going on, I also do kind of feel like um, just not wanting to be in the middle of my mother and I.
I get that.
So yeah,
Okay. So,
I feel like that's just her being safe and trying to keep her peace, you
okay.
know.
Going down the list. Okay.
hmm
So now, birth mom.
hmm
What is that relationship like at this point?
so interesting enough, I reached out to her recently about something work related, but I don't really talk to her.
Okay. And that's
Um,
fine.
I I don't really talk to her often, and it's just because there are parts of me that I notice are not all the way ready for a regular,
And
normal relationship.
that's fine. That's fine. Now your your sisters.
Um, it's funny. I've been on this road to forgiveness within the
Okay.
last 4 years. I had stopped speaking to everyone because I can hold a grudge, and I held this grudge for almost 7 years. And about
Oh,
a couple years ago, I reached out to my sisters individually, not together, and I sat down and I had dinner with all of them except for one um, at a neutral location, and we were able to hash things out, just me and each of them one on
right.
one,
Mm-hmm.
and we're fine now. We're
That's good.
fine. hmm
Now I want because you've said it. It's been a running thing with you, and I don't even know if you realize it. You've been talking about a journey to self
hmm
healing. Tell me what that has looked like for you. Like, what did you do? Because there's a lot of adoptees that need to do that.
Ooh. Oh, it was hmm. Um, self work looks like it looks like a mess. It looks like a mess at first. Um, it looks like a lot at first, and it can feel overwhelming, and it can be scary because at some point you are looking at yourself in the mirror. And I think that's the scariest thing about like doing inner work and self work is
Mm-hmm.
looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing what role you played in all the chaos.
Self
It's so
responsibility.
much easier to point the finger. And I mean,
Right.
I can legit continue to point the finger along the way. I mean, and I may be justified in doing so because it's not a lie, it is the truth. However, there are parts that I've played in my own demise.
Mm-hmm.
And um, just being brave enough to know that when I do this work, I'm doing it for the better of myself, not to punish myself, not to penalize myself for being a human, just to take accountability because there's power in accountability.
Mm.
And when we're doing that kind of work, it is so scary at first if you're not used to doing it. And if you don't have anybody around you holding you accountable for yourself, it's even harder to do it when you're trying to figure out what that looks like for yourself. And yeah, it was not easy. It was not easy.
How did you get to the point where you're like, you know what? I got to heal? Because some people, they never get there.
So when I made the decision to leave Trenton, it was because I had legit lost my mind. Um, And I have struggled with mental health issues
Okay.
prior to being finding my family, but I was never like officially diagnosed with anything that stuck. Like I was like often misdiagnosed, like a
Yeah.
lot of us are. That's another podcast.
Whole another
Um,
podcast.
and nothing really stuck. What happened was I felt like I wanted to die. I felt
Mm.
like I was ready to just check out because I had disappointed myself yet again. I felt like I had ruined my opportunity with the family. Like there was no other family. Remember, I told you that I had this
Yeah.
idea in my head that, well, if she doesn't like you, it's okay. You have
And I
your own
have
mom.
that. And
I
then
have
now I
another
don't
mom.
have that.
And so when I found them and everything went and hit the fan, it was like my dream was ruined.
Mm.
My what I thought it was going to be like was ruined, and I had nothing else. There was no other family to look for. There was no other mom, there was no other dad, there was no other possibility for me, and it was ruined. And when it was ruined, everything that I had thought about myself went along with it.
Ooh. Ooh,
Um,
ooh, ooh, ooh.
I felt like I was in a fun house with a bunch of distorted versions of myself, and none of them fit who I thought that I was.
Yeah.
So I realized in that moment at the same time that I felt like, you know what, you're not good. You're not good enough to be here. Just call it a day. I also thought, well, you've come this far and you have a pretty interesting story and you've survived a lot more than you're willing to acknowledge. And if you end your story like that, what kind of cliffhanger are you going to leave the people?
Cliffhanger.
Yeah, what do you what kind of hope are you going to leave the people that know that you are a survivor? You are, and I had to talk to myself in that hospital room like, we're not doing this. We're not going to allow other people to tell us who we are. And then in that moment, I realized that my creator is the only being that can dictate who I am and what my purpose is here.
That's right.
Not my mom, not my dad, not my brother,
Hmm.
not my sister, not my child, not a significant other. There's not one person on this earth that is going to tell me who I am and that be the truth.
Hmm. Ooh.
It may sound good. It
That's
might not
what,
sound good.
and when I just visualize you in that hospital room talking, having that conversation, and for me, what I hear, I'm like, that was nothing but God.
Hmm.
That's what I hear.
Hmm.
That was nothing but God. And
Yeah.
so,
And go ahead. I'm so sorry.
no, 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 no. I'm just um, dealing with mental health issues. And I know as a kid, no one called it that
Right.
because, in the 90s, I don't think I ever even heard that term,
Right.
mental health issues. And so I'm going back in my head, everything you talked about, you went through as a kid. You didn't even couple in there the fact that you had these mental health issues that you
Right.
probably didn't know what it was, or no one knew
Right.
how to diagnose. So that's coupled in
Right.
there.
Well, the interesting thing is that my father actually retired from the mental health field. He has
Oh,
a degree,
you
and
said that.
yeah,
But
so
see, I didn't know that early
mhm.
on. See, now that I'm here, okay, Dad.
Yeah, so I there was just a little resentment there, just a little. I prayed on it. We've forgiven him for that, but
For
I do
sure.
feel, looking back in retrospect, because of the type of job that he had during the day, and then having to come home and deal with the chaos there, I do feel like he just was trying to like save a little bit of sanity.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't think it was fair, but I do understand and empathize with it now as an adult.
As an adult,
I
yeah.
get it now. And it just was interesting because I took myself on this journey of recovery from that moment when I decided I'm gonna live. Actually, Actually, there's probably way more to this story. Actually, I want to be alive to see that. Actually, whatever it is, God, that you're doing, do it. I'm in. And from that moment, I've like actively, even to this day, like I still go to therapy, I do what I need to do. And it's a work in progress every day. Like I actually, and you know what? I forgot to tell you my medical history.
Ah,
I actually found out that the mental health issues that I had
runs in the
run
family.
in the family.
Hmm. Which is why it's
So
important
yeah, it
to
is to
know.
know these things.
And if you
Um,
don't know, go find out.
yeah, and it was hard for me. I do empathize with my mother now because she also does have mental health issues. At the
Okay.
time, I didn't care. When I got upset about things, I didn't care. Um, but she struggles similarly to how I struggle. So I do empathize with her in that way. Um, it just means that I need to take more care of myself and stop expecting other people to care for me in the way that I feel like I need to be cared for, and it having these expectations for other people to coach me through it, like I have to be that person for myself. And I think coming to terms with letting go of the idea that mom and dad are supposed to take care of me, because that's
Hmm.
what I was really bitter about.
Hmm.
Letting go of that idea that family is supposed to be a certain type of way is what freed me from the bondage of feeling abandoned or feeling neglected. Um, and I found power in that. I found a lot of power in being by myself because I had to. I had
Girl,
no
you are
choice.
preaching in here. Okay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Life will do it.
Okay.
Life will
You
do
better
it.
bring the word. Okay.
Okay. Listen, it's just a word in there. It
Yeah,
is
it's for
certainly a word
sure.
in there.
For sure. It's so powerful for you to even have come to that. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many people that are so comfortable with living in the hurt, living
Mm-hmm.
in the trauma, because if you take away and say you need, let's go heal, they don't want to do that because they enjoy living in
Yeah.
the
People get
trauma.
comfortable in the
They get
chaos.
comfortable in the chaos.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that stood out to me, you kept saying, I made the decision.
Mm-hmm.
I made the decision. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if you realize that. Sometimes someone needs to hear just that. You have to make a decision
Yeah.
and then move forward.
Right.
And at this point in the game, there's all kinds of resources out there.
Yes.
There's all kind of community out
Yes.
there. I want you to tell the family today, as of today, tell me who Aja Nicole is today.
Today, um, I am a certified peer recovery specialist,
Okay.
which means I make a living by sharing my story with other people who are struggling in similar ways, whether it be with mental health issues
Mm-hmm.
or substance use issues or whatever. Maybe it's co-occurring. I have a lot of experience where I can relate, and I share my story and my experiences with other people to help them and give them the resources that I have available to me to make it available to them. I am also an artist. I like a painter, and I am a recording artist and a writer, songwriter, and I create music for the soul. You're
I
on
was,
it.
and I
Yeah.
didn't listen because you know how I told you off camera what I do. I just, I come in with very little.
Yes. So, and my mission here, I feel on this life, God just placed it really deep down on my soul to be of service to people. There was a point in my life where I felt like I was the only one who was going through what I went through. When I looked at my peers, they didn't have dysfunctional families like mine. They might have been
Mm,
dysfunctional, but not like mine. And the unit was different, and I always felt behind. I always felt like no one understood. I always felt very unique in my chaos. But when I started going to therapy and group therapy, I realized that I'm not that unique. My story is not that unique. There's actually a lot of stories very similar. The character names may be different, but the
mm-hmm.
stories are very, very similar. And the pain is the same no matter what.
No matter what.
And I never want to have someone cross my path and them leave me without feeling like they've been hurt. Like my number one thing is to like show empathy and allow people to be heard because people need that. And my mission here in this lifetime while I'm here is to share the unconditional love that God bestows upon my life and to show empathy and to give words of encouragement and just be the light for other people who are struggling. And that's what I do with my music. That's what I do with my art. That's what I do at my job. That is just what I do.
I know, get my words together. Of everything that you just said, let me tell you what I heard. I went through what I went through for somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's
That's what I
definitely a big
heard.
purpose in the pain
It's a
for
bigger
sure.
purpose. Even though it was rough and it was hurtful and it was pain and the scratching and the clawing, it was for somebody else.
Yep.
And you understand that. You're so
Yeah.
dope.
Thank you. Thank you.
I loved having this conversation. Please tell the family how they can find your services, your art, your music, and I'll be sure to drop all the links in the description as well.
So I have a link tree on my bio. I'm just on social media. So I'm on
Right.
Instagram. I'm as told by Ajane, and that is my
Ajane
handle
Nicole.
across all social media. So even on TikTok and stuff like that, I'm as told by Ajane. And then in my bio, there's a link to my music.
Okay.
There's a link to my page or my art. And if anyone has any inquiries about anything, you can contact me via social media and it'll go straight to my email.
Okay. As told by Ajane.
Yes.
I want to say Ajane Nicole because I love that, but it's as
Thank you.
told by
By
Ajane.
Ajane. Yes.
For me, Ajane Nicole. That's from now on. That's
Thank
who you
you.
are for me.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming and being a guest. Your story, girl, I'm still at you moved in. I can't get
Yes.
past that.
I was like, okay, get sold. I'm coming.
I love that. Thank you so much. And
Thank you
hang
for
on just for
having me.
sure. And hang on for just a second. And until
Okay.
next week, bye family.
Journey, journey on, journey, journey on. You need a pie with the good, good. Oh yeah, what is the one?